welcome to the 10th episode of TCLF One-On-One. Through the One-on-One series, we aim to interact with the best legal professionals from India and around the world. Today, we have a very special guest with us, Ms. Kirthana Singh Khurana, who is a lecturer at Jindal Global Law School. Ma'am completed her undergraduate law degree from University of Delhi and went on to pursue a master's degree in corporate laws from the University of Cambridge. She has been fantastic with her research and academic work, and her credentials speak for themselves. And today we're going to have a chat on the topic academia and her field of specialization, that is corporate laws and corporate governance. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us. It's an honor for us to have you.
Thank you so much, Shashwat, for organizing this, and I would like to thank the Contemporary Law Forum as well for picking me to talk about a career in academia, and I'm just glad and excited to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Just to set the tone for the interview, ma'am, could you please tell us more about your law school journey? Was academia always the plan while you entered law school? Did you have this in mind that I have to, from the very first year you develop this interest, I want to go into academics? How was it like?
Okay, so to talk about my law school journey, I think we'll have to go back slightly because I'd like to start to to talk about my undergrad life first and then move on to my law school life. So while I was in the penultimate years of my school, that's when we decide, right, what we want to pursue later on. At that juncture, I was very confused as to, what should be my next step. And I was equally inclined towards law and commerce both. And after my 12th grade, I sat for the 5-year law program entrances as well. But at that time, I decided that, I would like to first venture into commerce and then see if my love for law is sustained there, and probably afterwards I'll pursue law, and that's what I actually did. So I did my undergraduate from Sri Ram College of Commerce, and there I sort of realized that my first love is law, and corporate law, commercial law subjects are something that are of my interest, and that's why I decided to pursue a 3-year LLB degree at Campus Law Center. Now, to talk a bit about my life at Campus Law Center, I was a very studious student, so I loved all the subjects that were being taught to me, and that was like a very different, so to say, the classroom experience that I had at SRCC, because there, of course, I understood the subjects, but I wasn't really passionate about those. But when I moved to the law school, I found myself more inclined towards attending classes every day. So I think my attendance was superb there as compared to SRCC. And yeah, I was very much academically oriented at law school, and I did a couple of good internships. I tried to do a lot of certification courses because we didn't really have many elective choices at law school. So I tried to gain as much knowledge as I could, and I also tried my hand at research. I wrote a couple of articles at law school, and yeah, to sum up, I was actually a nerd at law school. I was totally academic oriented at law school. Now, to talk about whether academia was my first choice of career, well, to be honest, if we can talk about any law student who's interested in corporate law, everybody wants to be a Harvey Specter, everybody wants to be a Martin Lipton, but very few people would actually want to be, say, a Professor Brian Sheffins or Professor Umakant Barotil, right? So even I was among them. I never thought that academia would be something that I would be interested in. However, I was lucky to have a few professors who had that sort of an impact on my life, that I had it somewhere in my mind that academia could be a possible career avenue for me. But I can think of an example. So while I was doing my undergraduation, my company law professor, Professor Reena Chadda, now she was brilliant, and I was just enamored by the way she used to conduct classes and her intellect level. So there was one episode that I can never forget. So her classroom was actually taken up by replacement cell, so she used to hold her lectures in the lawn, and imagine like April and scorching heat, but still like out of 60 students, around 55 to 57 would come out and attend her classes in the lawn. So that sort of impact that, she had on her students, that everybody was actually interested in attending her classes, even, sitting in lawns. I think that was somewhere in my mind. And when I completed my master's and I came back to India, when I also had the opportunity of working at a leading law firm, or to join a senior advocate, a leading corporate lawyer practicing at Supreme Court, I still decided that, I want to give academia a shot, because to be honest, I didn't find the work-life balance in the law firm, which I now find in a career in academics. And moreover, the sort of flexibility that I was looking for with regards to what I was interested in. Say, if you look at law firms, if you say join a competition law team,
Right.
your work is sort of confined to your competition law itself, and you don't get many opportunities to venture out of that realm. However, if you look at academics, you get the opportunity of deciding what you want to research on. So like currently I'm researching on CSR. Now CSR is something that not many corporate lawyers get to work on at law firms. So this liberty of deciding what I want to do, what research I want to do, is something that really attracted me towards academia, and I am very, very happy that I took this step. So yeah, that was
That's
to sum up
quite
my
an
law
interesting take, man.
journey.
That's quite an interesting way to look at things, because obviously looking at a field of specialization, not many people, as you rightly pointed out, would want to, from the very start, venture into academia as far as corporate laws go.
Correct.
Because
Correct.
international law, public law, that's still considerable because of the opportunities available. And
Correct.
another thing that you pointed out was the ability to constantly engage with students. That's something I think
Correct. I
that
think
adds
that
benefit.
gives you a sense of accomplishment. Whenever I take a good lecture and people come back to me with questions, I think that feeling is just something like surreal. So I
Right.
really enjoy that, definitely.
Taking cue from that, ma'am, you talked about working and the diversity that academy offers. Taking cue from that, there is a very simple way. Whenever we talk to professionals, to our mentors, to people who are experienced in this field, they just come up with a solution that if you want to gain practical exposure to the functioning of laws, or if you want to gain practical knowledge, then the simplest way to go about it is to intern at different places, and intern at firms, lawyers, organization, research centers. But as far as academics go, there is no formula, or there is no way that students are taught, like basically guided about that. We students are not
Right.
taught about, unfortunately, how academic analysis is to be developed, how to look at law and critically engage with the law as far as academics go. So what do you think is the problem, and what is the way forward for this?
Tell you about my experience, I completely agree with you. Even I didn't have any practical knowledge. I did intern at a lot of law firms and with advocates, but of course, I didn't know what feels like to be an academician. Definitely, that's a problem. But what I've observed, like to quote, like to give Jindal as an example. So what a lot of students who are interested in the field of academia are doing nowadays is that they become teaching assistants, right? So say in your fourth year or your fifth year, you could look at possibly talking to one of your professors in the field that you are interested in, and to become their teaching assistants. That's a very good approach if you want to see if this life is made for you. And a lot of students, I believe, are doing that nowadays. Apart from that, again, I'd like to cite the organization that I am involved in, is that we are given, the students are given opportunities to engage, to become, research assistants or professors during the summer. So even now, I have somebody from the second year who's assisting me with my research work and with my, with my study material preparation, etc. So that is another way in which you can associate with a professor and to gain knowledge about what a life in academics would be like. So these are the possible ways in which people who are interested in pursuing a career in academics could take up. Apart from that, of course, there are more like writing committees or research groups that are nowadays being formed in universities, wherein students can engage with, say, senior students or with professors if they want to develop their research abilities and skills. So that is another way in which universities can engage people who are interested in research work by collaborating on research papers and to work on policy making as well. So these are the few steps that I think now universities are like being in, they are doing it nowadays, and this is not what used to happen earlier. But I think as and when we are moving forward, and in the years to come, I hope more universities will have similar options for students in place, and I think a lot of students can take advantage of these opportunities definitely.
That's something I would agree to, ma'am. And like moving forward, you studied at Cambridge. You did the MCL course there, which is a very specialized course uh, designed for corporate law enthusiasts. So Cambridge is definitely, undoubtedly, I would say, one of the best law schools in the world. So what were the differences that you noticed in the academic models than the in Cambridge and the one that you experienced in India? What were some key differences that you faced?
So one of, like, to talk about the major difference was that the my classmates were like hailing from different parts of the world. I think that sort of improved my classroom experience, because I had friends from, say, Europe, from South Africa, from other parts of Asia, UK, America. So I had people coming from all different backgrounds, and to study with them, to get different perspectives of class, whatever issue is being discussed in the class. I think that was the thing that I remember the most about my classroom experiences there. So that is something that we don't unfortunately have in India, but of course we do have a lot of foreign collaborations nowadays. We can see some sort of an improvement in that sphere. Apart from that, I think the practical orientation that the course had was something very different from how I studied corporate law in India. To cite an example, there was this module that we had, which was called the Deals course. Now, in that module, we were over the year we were made to work on specific deals that Magic Circle firms took up in the UK, and we were given their confidential documents to go through, to read through whatever clauses were there, and to read about those clauses, and to negotiate. So basically, we spent an entire month on every deal. So we were taught how to negotiate as lawyers, and towards the end of every deal, those people who actually worked on the deals came and took a lecture and discussed their problems and their experiences while dealing with that particular transaction. So I think we had, of course, we I had knowledge of company law, but to see it from a practitioner point of view as to how deals actually take place, that was something that really gave me like a practical orientation towards corporate law, which was definitely missing from my studies in India. So that is something that I think we should bring about in Indian studies as well, and to train our students to be better equipped to take up corporate law jobs in the future. This is something that India is lacking at, for, I mean, to talk about the current situation, and we can move towards and learn from our contemporary universities placed in various parts of the world. So these were broadly the differences that I sort of experienced while studying at Cambridge.
Just to follow up on that, day in day out we read these articles, commenting upon the sad state of affairs with research in India, especially the research output and how Indian universities rank very low in terms of that. I think the one of the major problems is that the academia in most of the universities, especially I would say that public universities as well, uh, the academia itself is not encouraged to research, and even the ones who want to research are not given the time to research because they have to constantly teach and they're not given a break to actually pursue their research. So
Absolutely.
how do we improve the quality of research within the academia so as to you know have a better research output?
I personally feel that this is not something that only the legal fraternity deals with. It's something that education sector broadly, faces these sort of challenges in India. So the
Right.
first, I mean, the major thing that needs to be done is to change the outlook of the government towards the education sector, right? So if more importance is given to the education sector by the government as such, I think things will definitely improve. So that is one thing that I think all academicians are looking at, and I'm hopeful that the government will someday realize the importance of professors and academicians and researchers obviously play in a country, and hope for better times. So that is one major thing that needs to be changed. Now, apart from that, I think we need to have more faculty development programs, and this is something that a lot of academicians don't really are not really good at. Is that there is no, like, there is a lot of stress on good classroom ethics and how you teach, but of course your research skills are not as developed as they are, or they should be, as if we look at professors working in universities all around the globe. So we should give more importance to faculty development programs,
Right.
training programs, and again, research collaboration opportunities with professors working in the similar fields abroad. So basically, and these things are definitely happening in law schools, NLUs. And to talk
Right.
about Jindal Global University, we also have academic writing centers where our whatever things we are researching, we can obviously make those other people who are more skilled at research, orientation, they can have a look at our research work and comment. Similarly, like similar opportunities are given to students to hone their research skills. So we are definitely moving towards that realm, but of course there's a much scope for improvement. And I hope that, of course, like in the coming times, because of an improvement in research and the quality of research that Indian academicians come up with, we can see more universities featuring at world rankings. And I'm very
Right.
hopeful that in the near future we can see more NLUs and private legal universities featuring at global universities because of their improvement in research. So hoping
That's
for better
that's
times, definitely.
That certainly we all would want to see. We would want to see more Indian universities, getting better at the research output, and our professors, constantly chasing uh, better research credentials, because that has a direct impact on the students as well. That
Right.
inspires them. Moving forward, ma'am, it's evident that due to the outbreak of the current pandemic, the classrooms have taken up a virtual model. In fact, for some universities, this is the first time that they're trying to embrace this virtual model, because they're
Right.
not experienced in imparting education through virtual means. As a professor, what is your take on, like, what are the differences that you've noticed in virtual classrooms? Because obviously that environment cannot be replicated. And
Correct.
what are some differences that you have noticed, and just your take on
All right. So I mean, we were blessed that we had the technical bandwidth to actually seamlessly move to an online classroom setup, whereas a lot of universities are still struggling to do that. So in that sense, I mean, we were blessed that it really took us a week to move to the online classes, and our online classes began very smoothly. But to talk about a few disadvantages and advantages of the online setup, I think the major disadvantage is that the touch, the thing that you can get in a physical or a contact class is that you can understand how much your students are understanding. So if I'm
it?
teaching and I'm explaining a concept, I can fairly get an idea as to who is interested and who is sort of getting what I'm trying to say. Now, this is something that I personally struggle with when I take up online classes. This is the only major, disadvantage I feel about the online class. However, if I talk about the many advantages of online classes, is one that I believe that there is a more focused approach. Right. So if
Right.
you have your earphones on and you are listening to your professor, it's like a one-on-one class that you have with your professor. So I believe that enables you to have a much more concentrated approach to the lecture that is being being taught to you. So whatever concept you're being taught, you have a very focused approach. Whereas if you're in your classroom, you have a few friends you talk to, you have a lot of miscreants in class, which may sort of, you may have a diverse, like your concentration may get may get diverted, and you may get distracted. So that is something that you don't have in an online class. Apart from that, I feel you know because these online classes are recorded, you get an opportunity to go back and to whatever, to have an opportunity to revise whatever you were being taught. This is something that you don't have in online classes. These are the major advantages and disadvantages. Further, I feel that even the UGC has now recognized a lot of online courses. So we are seeing a shift. We are seeing a shift towards blended learning now. So we really don't know when this pandemic is going to end. So I mean, this is something that all of us need to adapt to, and a lot of students and professors are definitely doing that. And yeah, this is something that we all need to live through now.
And
This is the new normal.
the biggest difference as a student I've noticed is that how am I audible has replaced good morning all of you. Like the first thing the professor come, comes in and says, and
Yeah,
even a student
that's
while
a bit
presenting,
to miss.
am I audible? So that's something that we all noticed. Now moving on to your area of specialization, now it's clear why you chose that area. You had a background in corporate, in commerce, because you, as you mentioned, you had an undergraduate degree in commerce from the Sri Ram College of
Right,
Commerce. So obviously you were business minded in that sense because you wanted to understand how businesses work. So we'll
correct.
save time of that. We understand why you have that interest. Moving on to the next question, which is that looking at the present times, we are
Mhm.
seeing, a drastic impact on M&A deals, the ongoing M&A deals, because the corporates are confused whether to pull the brakes or whether to just go through with the transaction. So, what do you
Correct.
think is the impact of the pandemic on M&A, on the ongoing M&A transactions?
I mean, definitely feel that there is an air of uncertainty, right? I mean, it's prevalent between you as well as a law student, as a professor, and of course, at a large scale, even companies are facing this threat of uncertainty, right? Everybody is facing that. Now, what I perceive that in the short term, definitely the M&A landscape is definitely going to be impacted because of the lockdown. A lot of these the economic
Right,
activities as such came to a standstill, and that led to cash crunch and liquidity crunch. If we talk about even the small companies or large companies,
right,
these effects were all pervasive. Now, what I personally feel is that there were a few industries which were badly impacted, like tourism and hospitality, entertainment. Now, in these industries, obviously, the M&A activities is definitely going to come down. If there were M&A deals in the pipeline, they are going to face a cancellation or possibly a
right,
postponement. That is bound to happen, definitely, because companies are now, having are more they are having like this protectionist approach towards
right,
things, and not, they don't want to engage in further investments. However, of course, every adversity comes with opportunities as well. So we have seen an increase in activities with respect to industries like insurance, edutech,
right,
pharmaceutical industry. So now that those industries, I'm pretty optimistic that they will see more M&A activity happening, because more people want to invest their money in that, as there is an increase in demand. So there is, we can see like a different approach to M&A with respect to different industries. Now, again, like to talk about, say, China. Now, a lot of companies say foreign investment is getting diverted to India, which earlier used to go to China. So with respect to that, again, we can see an increase in M&A activity. So I think that's the
right.
impact that the present COVID situation would have, right?
Right. Just to follow up on that, in fact, I've been reading some articles, and some scholars as well as professionals suggest that while the short term while the effects in the short term are drastic and M&A activity will surely be impacted because the deals might just not go through, but in the future after the pandemic, they're saying that it's possible that the deals might just go up because it will prevent an opportunity for the big players to acquire and actually get a hold of the small players who are looking for investors, and they would be looking out for opportunities. So do you agree that we could see a surge in the M&A activity post the pandemic as an opportunity of some sorts?
I think this is something that we observed even during the financial crisis of 2008-9, is when the financial actually the crisis actually got over. We saw more investments in a few sectors where there were more distressed assets. So of course, like cash-rich companies and companies with deep pockets would now be able to acquire companies at a much lower price than before. So this is something again, that every crisis, I mean, leads to this. So definitely, I mean, there are a lot of companies which are having a detriment effect of the COVID situation and will face, lower valuations, and this would be seen as a positive by companies who are like, seeking to invest in distressed assets. So that is again something that I also personally agree with, that once this pandemic slows down or gets over, we can see an increase in M&A activities in industries where there may be distressed assets. So definitely that is something that we can observe. But of course, that being said, it's very early to predict when this pandemic would actually end and what sort of effects will it have once it's over. So it's early to say that, but if we look at other crises in the past, this has been the trend, and this is what even I sort of predict that will happen in the future.
The extraordinary circumstances that everybody is getting affected, but the effects are disproportionate. So no one can predict what will happen because every industry works differently. So airlines and
Yes.
all these industries are facing, much more than probably some other industry. Oil and petroleum might just see a surge because they obviously
Right.
investors would want to move there, but airlines wouldn't know how to revive. So
Right.
that's something that you've correctly pointed out. And now moving forward to a rather recent development, that is the company's amendment bill 2020. Now the bill has made some very important changes. For example, decriminalizing certain offences under the act, and changes to the CSR regime as well as the corporate governance regime, which are in fact your areas of specialization. So, if you were to talk about it, what are the three major highlights you think that the bill uh, proposes, or three major highlights with regards to your areas of specialization?
Mhm. All right. So, to talk about the amendment bill, first we need to talk about the main act that we have, which is Companies Act
Yes.
2013. So, to talk a little bit about that, sorry. So that was passed in the light of the various scams that we had, right? So it was observed, it was felt that we need to change the corporate governance structure that we have in India so that we are able to stop those scams from happening and to just like improve our economy, and be at par with whatever corporate governance norms existed in other countries like the US and the UK. So that was the entire thought behind moving from Companies Act 1956 to Companies Act 2013. And that is why a lot of these, we had so many sections with respect to imprisonment. So whenever you committed a corporate offense, there were a lot of sections which would entail imprisonment as well as high amount of penalties. Now that was seen as something which that didn't really go well with the Indian incorporation. So the companies, the big business stalwarts, they were not pro this idea of having so many having so many criminal repercussions of corporate offenses. So
Right.
that is, I think, that is the main like the background in which these amendments were brought about. Now to talk a bit about the Companies Amendment Bill 2020. So the major highlight of this amendment was to decriminalize a lot of corporate offenses, right? Now with respect to decriminalization of offenses, there are two schools of thought amongst academicians and practitioners. One says that corporate offenses should only have civil prosecution, and they should not be considered as criminal offenses. That is one end of the spectrum. The other, they say that in case you don't have criminal penalties or high penalties, then it would sort of incentivize non-compliance, right? So where to find the middle ground? So the ideal way, which I personally believe, and which I think the company law committee has also tried to do with respect to, by introducing this company's amendment bill, is to take up, like, so decriminalize technical and minor non-compliances, while also retaining strict criminal enforcement for serious and fraudulent offenses. Right. So, there was something which I personally feel which was not required, is that if you don't, so buyback of shares, section 67. Now, in case you didn't comply with the regulations with respect to buyback, you could be imprisoned for 3 years. I think 3 years, or for some substantial amount of time. Now, that I feel is not required, right? We can do away with that. However, of course, like major serious fraudulent offenses that you do, say for example, misstatement in prospectus or in your annual statement, that of course can entail a higher threshold of criminal sort of sanction for that. So you have to find a balance, and that is something I believe that the amendment bill has sought to introduce. So it has sort of removed penalty for certain offenses. It has reduced penalties, and it has gotten done away with imprisonment sections with respect to a few corporate offenses, which I think is a welcome move. The other highlight possibly could be with respect to the CSR laws. Now, if we talk about the Companies Amendment Act 2019, again, like, anybody who didn't really go forward with the CSR compliance that any company used to do, was required to do, could face imprisonment. Now, this again didn't go well with the business, tycoons of India, and they wanted to seek a change that, we don't run a business with respect to having a social development, perspective in our mind. So why are you, having such strict, compliance with respect to CSR norms? And this is not something that we see in other countries as well. So this again has been, this is something that we don't see in the amendment bill. Apart from that, it exempts a few companies which only have, I think, to invest about 50 lakhs in their CSR activities, do not have a CSR committee. Apart from that, you also have an opportunity to set off your, if you exceed your, so 2% is what you require to invest every year. If you exceed that, you can take it forward next year. So this is again, I think, a good move, good introduction made by the Corporate Affairs Ministry as regards to the company law. Apart from that, a lot of, we can see a delegation of powers. So whatever power NCLT earlier used to have is now delegated more to regional directors and registrar of companies, which again, I feel, is a good way of sort of, relaxing whatever the NCLT used to deal with. We are sort of reducing their burden. So that again is a very good move, which is brought forth by the Amendment Act. These are my comments on the bill.
Right, that was pretty insightful. I think the major aim is very evident from the statement of object and reasons. It is essentially to create a business-friendly environment for the
Correct.
entities, especially in the present circumstances with
And to
the
add on to that, I think we
right,
have seen an improvement in the way India is now ranking in the
right.
ease of doing business rankings. It is improving year by year. So let's hope. I mean, I'm hopeful that because of these changes, we can see a much higher jump that India takes in the rankings. So yeah, why
Right.
not?
Uh,
Yeah.
Lastly, ma'am, any piece of advice to people who aspire to join the academia but are scared because they think that possibly there are not much opportunities in India, or uh, have some other kind of fear or external considerations which is creating a barrier to that aspiration. Any piece of advice for them?
So this, I mean, as far as academia is concerned, I personally feel that it's not a profession, it's a calling, right? Unless you feel passionate about a subject, or unless you feel like it's your duty to, somehow give back to the society, raise the future generation of lawyers, you can be good professors, but you will never make great professors, right? So that passion about pursuing a subject in particular is something that can't be taught to anybody. It's something that comes from within. So my personal belief is that unless you have that passion, you should not join. But if in case you are interested in pursuing one subject or a particular field of law and you are passionate about it, then I feel it gives you that flexibility, it gives you that liberty to venture out, to challenge yourself intellectually as much as you can, and it's a wonderful fraternity to be in. And to talk about the opportunities that you get as in the academic arena, is that you can play a very good role in policy making. You get to work on research projects funded by the government or funded by corporations or other agencies. You get to do that as well. Apart from that, you get to also collaborate with foreign universities. You can become guest lecturers. You can go and interact with different professors and students which are in your field but are not in your country, so you get the opportunity to do that as well. And as a role of an academician, I believe that we've seen a transition. So earlier, not many opportunities used to exist for law students to venture out once they were done with their studies. But now we see that more people are joining, say, law firms, litigation, then in-house counsels, policy making, and at every stage of life, I think you need a lawyer with you, and I think that sort of increases our importance as academicians, because we'll be building the next force of lawyers who go out in the world and serve the society, right? So there is an increase in the importance of our role, how we mold the future generation of lawyer, what in education we impart, what morals we impart. So that, I think, is something that every person who wants to join the academia should have this in their heart and mind, and should work towards whenever they do enter this field. And it's a wonderful place to be in. I am very happy to be here, and I have big goals with respect to where I want to be and where I want to take the education, legal education, in the next few, in the next 10 to 15 years. So I hope, I'm able to contribute something to this, and whoever are my students go ahead and make their names and do wonders in the world. So that is the conviction I have, and that is something that I would just suggest anybody who wants to join this field to have as well. Those would be
That is
my
that is quite true, ma'am. In fact, I think that anyone who aspires to join this fraternity or joining the academy, and there is this one single conviction that you talked about that should inspire them and motivate them to pursue this goal. That is the ability to change lives. Like one lecture can change the perspective of a student. One lecture
correct.
can develop an interest in a particular field of law, which otherwise the student was scared of. So
and
the ability
and
to change perspectives,
just to add to that, your college life never ends, right? So
right?
if I look back, my college time, that was the best time of my life. And I still go to college every day. I still chat up with my students over in the canteen. And your college life, which is perhaps the best time of your life, never really ends, right? So you're still fresh, you still interact with young people, and that is something that really motivates me to go to college every day and interact with young students. I think it's a privilege.
Absolutely true, ma'am. That was quite an interesting conversation, insightful, comprehensive, and just very heartfelt because it's. I think anyone who joins the academia, personally relates to the concerns of students because they can see it in front of their, in front of them what is actually happening at that
Correct.
particular place. So thank you so much for joining us today, ma'am. Uh, Once again, it's an
Pleasure.
honor to have had this conversation with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I had a great time interacting with you, and all the best for your future endeavors. Thank you so much.